My capstone was inspired by a personal experience, as most capstones are. Shortly after my son was born 15 years ago, his father and I divorced. After a year of adapting to the traditional every other weekend custody model, we both decided we wanted to be a true co-parenting team where we worked together to raise our son, despite being divorced. What we weren't prepared for was the reaction of the people around us. They didn't understand how to support us while we navigated various episodes of conflict, as many co-parenting teams experience while raising children. This experience brought me to pose the question, how do the informal support groups surrounding parents during conflict impact the resolution and decision-making process? With the divorce rates remaining at about 50% in the U.S., and 10% of those divorces including custody agreements, it's increasingly important to place a priority on supporting families as they renegotiate new roles and dynamics in raising children. Current literature offered has a focus on formal interventions, such as mediation and litigation, that helps parents to resolve their conflict. There is very little research, however, in addressing the surrounding support group's influence. Friends, family, and partners could have a negative impact on a situation by offering parents advice that fuels disagreement. Research offers insight into how gender, culture, and different parenting styles play a role in how conflict manifests. They also have a role in how informal supports are incorporated into the various conflict situations. Group influence is recognized as helping parents to cope, as well as the amount of maturity that is demonstrated while managing interparental struggles. In exploring my research question, I interviewed 3 mothers and 3 fathers. I worked with my supervising organization, Salt Lake County Youth Services, and approached parents that were referred by the organization's family therapists. I spoke with the parents about their conflict situations, and they shared details about the different influences that had negative and positive effects. I also helped 3 parents to create a digital story based on their experience. Digital storytelling is a short form of digital media production that allows people to share aspects of a life story. The stories are limited to 300 to 400 words and are typically between 3 to 4 minutes long, incorporating a narrative recording, music, pictures, and other media that expresses the story they want to share. I attended a 3-day workshop in Berkeley, California, hosted by the Center for Digital Storytelling, to learn the technique as well as to create my own digital story that I could use as an example for parents. The 3 digital stories that were created, as well as my own, will be used in parenting classes at youth services and in staff trainings. After completing the 6 interviews and 3 digital stories, I coded them to find prominent themes. One salient finding highlighted the different support groups that were available to mothers and fathers. Mothers generally have a higher value placed on support they receive, and all 3 mothers were able to identify several support figures that were accessible to them. In contrast, fathers had very few supports available to them, with one father describing how he lost a lot of friends who didn't want to deal with him and his, quote, baby mama drama. This was consistent with research associating masculine identities as being disinclined to seek out support because this behavior is related to being feminine. Masculine characters resist bringing attention to failure, and conflict could be regarded as failure. Furthermore, some men that adopt masculine attributes may not place significant value in reaching out to those around them for support. As a result, these men lack a fully developed support system. I also found that amongst all of the support groups that were identified, grandparents, or the parents' parents, had the most impact. Grandparents helped by de-escalating the perception of the conflict and also by offering unconditional support. In some situations, however, the grandparents were just as emotionally involved as the parents were in the conflict, and when that occurred, the parents described how they now had to manage the feelings of the grandparents and cope with their own feelings. Another significant source of support was that of a partner or spouse. Some partners had a negative influence on the conflict by encouraging behavior and decisions that instigated further disagreements. Others had a positive influence by offering a nurturing forum where their partner is able to simply vent as they worked through their feelings. Through all of my research, I also found a theme in the characteristics of an ideal support. All 6 parents reached out to the support that was the least reactive and offered a sense of calm and peace. The participants described how they sought after those that used humor to bring them back into reality and offered an unconditional platform where they can talk about their feelings without dealing with the reaction that intensified the perception of conflict. This was a significant finding for me because I had initially had an assumption that parents were looking for someone to join their army, but what they really want is for someone to bring them down from their own amplified emotions. The findings within my capstone are important as complicated family dynamics continue to trend, and the every other weekend model is being modified to fit the needs of modern families. 50% of the children in the U.S. will experience the separation of their natural parents, and 25% of all the nation's children will experience subsequent divorces as parents marry and remarry, further complicating the traditional family structure. By exploring how friends, family, co-workers, and religion influence interparental conflict, we can effectively support our parenting teams through cycles of conflict. When parenting teams are modeling ideal behavior while working through disagreements, they are not only protecting their children from the harm associated with family disrupt, but also teaching them to develop healthy conflict behavior themselves as they enter into adulthood.